Yeah, one example I was going to ask you about in that previous interview that I forgot to was the fact that originally both Judaism and Christianity had beliefs in reincarnation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
All of the early religious traditions believed in reincarnation, because what happened is, before the current supernatural religions of Judaism and Christianity and Islam and the offshoots of those, you had a natural belief in reincarnation. If you look at Rome, for example, and Greece more particularly, prior to the time of Jesus in that part of the world, both the Greeks and the Hebrews and the Egyptians and the other cultures in that area talked of reincarnation in natural terms, just the way I talk about it today.
It was just accepted.
It was accepted. This is part of the process, and so on. And that, even up at the time of Jesus, although we're not sure exactly what he said, because the books have been revised several times in the history of the church, but the references of, you know, are you the reincarnation of Elijah? Or is John the Baptist the reincarnation of so-and-so? I mean, these kinds of discussions and questions were natural, and there was no question about it. They were talking about what we're talking about in terms of reincarnation. About 500 years into Christianity, then, of course, the church hierarchy and the emperor, who was head of the Roman church at the time, they decided that we have to say no, because that didn't coincide with the theology that was developing in the church.
Now, you contend that at some point in history, these advanced beings left. They just deserted humanity, and they were no longer there kind of overseeing their development.
Well, I suggested that about 1500 BC, about 3,500 years ago, I think the beings that historically are described as physically on the earth, living in the temples in Sumeria and Arcadia, in the pyramids in Egypt and so on, these beings appear to have physically withdrawn. And if you look at the African stories about that time, they said, the African stories say things like, these beings on the planet were fighting among themselves. The brothers couldn't get along. So the father said, come back up here to the spaceship in the sky. And so they withdrew physically. So I think that's an event that happened about 3,500 years ago. But what happened is that the communications have continued. And I think the visits have been resumed. We don't have a colonization of humans at the moment under these ABs, but we do have experiments being done. We have communications. We have messages sent telepathically. So this kind of interaction is still going on. And that's why you still, you know, have revelations that start new religious cults. I mean, Yahweh was, you know, about that time, about 3,500 years ago. And I would suggest that Yahweh was one of those beings who had been here physically and left, and then spoke through this cloud and smoke to keep himself separate, because the gods had decided we're going to be separate.
Now, in the lost books, the wise men were following this star, and I know they've been called Chaldeans or astrologers, but they were literally following it according to the description. The star descended in front of a cave which was built into a stable where Jesus was born, and it lit up the whole cave with a bright light, which there we go with Close Encounters of the Third
we've
Kind
had
again.
We've had a lot of recent reports of lights lighting up areas and illuminating individuals and taking individuals away. And
have you personally had any encounters with any kind of advanced beings or telepath? Or
I'm not aware of any direct encounters. I think that my mind is one that sort of is not as credulous as others, and my role as a human being and as a scientist is to sort of observe neutral.
Right.
In other words, I would say, as one of my friends, a psychologist, also says, I study a lot of groups, I know a lot of areas and a lot of worldviews, but I'm not a joiner of any group.
Right.
And I think that sets me apart from that kind of experience.
Right.
I have had, I think, communications and experiences that suggest that I'm a part of that larger
right.
community, but I'm not really a devotee of any particular group.
Now, in the literature and the evidence suggests out there, we've got abductees,
Yes.
people that feel like they've been abducted by aliens. Of course, I believe a lot of that could be out-of-body abduction rather than actual physical abduction, but
yeah, it can
as
be both.
compared to the contactees who are just in telepathic communication, what kind of weight do you give to telepathic type events as compared to supposed physical descriptions?
Oh, well, I think they're both, they should be treated equally.
Okay.
I mean, I think the physical events are events, and I think there's plenty of evidence that we do have some physical contact. We do have some evidence of implants or artifacts that are left behind,
Right.
or body wounds and so on. We do have physical evidence. But it seems to me that that's just a different level, and both are described by some people as negative experiences, and both are described as positive experiences, whether it's interdimensional or three-dimensional.
Have you had any other type of paranormal experiences personally?
Well, I don't know. I don't call them paranormal. I mean, I have done workshops for a number of years. I don't do them anymore, but I did for a number of years on telepathy and precognition and remote viewing. And I mean, I have used these inner senses in a number of ways over time,
right.
In terms of experiments and workshops, and in terms of my own, I think, access to information. I think all of us do. It's a matter of opening up that inner channel to communications from other beings and other levels of consciousness and other levels of our own consciousness. I think we're playing an organ, you know, we're putting the pressure on and releasing it, and we release it and things come in and we press down, and we keep it away from ourselves. And to me, life is a balancing act, taking in information from any source and then stopping the intake and reflecting on and thinking about and analyzing what you have received and trying to make sense of it. And that's what my books are. I mean, trying to make sense of multidimensional information, multidimensional beings in this universe where everybody's evolving and growing.
Does your research suggest that there is a pattern or some sort of agenda that the alien beings or advanced beings are, you know, trying to?
I think they are also mixed.
Okay.
I think there are agendas that have the human interest at heart. We have a lot of stories in both the Bible and in the apocryphal books of the ABs attempting to help humans, give advice and guidance that's helpful, passing on useful knowledge and information. I think that's still going on. There are also ABs who would like to take advantage of what we produce and what we give off in terms of energy and in terms of service.
Right.
And so you got both.
Okay, our guest has been Paul Von Ward, the author of God's Genes and Consciousness. Thank you for being on Mystery Us.
Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate it very much. It's been a pleasure to be on your program.